This is not your job, but I think you guys need a group text for every meeting. And get a response. Right. And I'm sorry, you shouldn't have to do that, but she needs to send a text to every member at like 3 o'clock. Yeah.
He has to recuse himself.
That's what I thought. Yeah, and that way you have time to harass them. I'm sorry.
That'll be the last thing.
Goes into the record.
Not final approval, but it's just the scene.
Can we put that open for 3?
Amanda sends all the things.
We could. When we start, there's a truck pulling in now.
I do actually. It's all new for me. I find it fascinating.
I would ask you. I mean, you did the research.
I did a bunch of school stuff.
Yeah, please. Because I think they're coming in now too anyway, so.
It was fun the first time.
Here comes Mike, so. We're good.
Rob said he would be late, and then there was, there's Mike.
Hey, Mike.
That is something I've never really committed to. I'll leave that in your custody.
If we have 3, we're good. Because I want to make a. All right, go.
Hi, Mike.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's.
If the people are walking up, I'll wait 1 second. And then if, I don't want them to walk in during the pledge.
It's agriculture. Well, yes. In a logistical sense, that's right.
The collection, removal.
I don't want them to walk in during the pledge, so I'm just going to wait a minute till they get in at least.
There's one. This is where you have to decide that you can have 1.73 goats.
Right. Yes. The infiltration. You gotta get scientists out here. Go
Yeah.
scientists.
He'll be here later.
Seems like we can find one of those.
Okay? Amanda, is it good? All right. Is this sound? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Hello, I'd like to welcome you to the Village of Pauling Planning Board meeting. Lou, if you could do us the honors and lead us in the pledge. Okay, as a first order, let's do the roll call. Amanda?
We have Chairman Mark Delbazo,
Present.
Member Lou Masella,
Here.
Member Mike Rendich,
Here.
and Member Josh Archibald.
Here.
All right, thank you. What I'd like to do is, as a first order of business, approve the previous minutes from April 14th and April 29th.
I'll make that motion.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, for the first order of business on the agenda, we have a sketch conference for the application for 15 Memorial Avenue. If the applicant and owner is here to present. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand behind you, Mary, if that's okay.
Sure.
Could we also have a vice? Yeah, our vice will be late. If you could have a copy of what you handed out, please, just over here. Thank you. You can give it at the end. Yeah.
I am Mary Langan from O'Neill Architects. You of you might remember me from 15 Memorial when we were developing Chapman House. I was the architect. So we were involved in converting the building to the hotel that it is now. And we're happy to report that it's been a success. So thank you for working with us on that. As you know, or some of you know, I think everyone in the room knows, we converted the single-family residence into a 4-room hotel. And we are here tonight to discuss future improvements that we would like to make, which we believe will just enhance the experience for those in the public who are enjoying Chapman House. We would like to phase our improvements, so I'll explain to you the improvements to you as we're thinking about them and how they would be phased. I'll just explain to you a little bit about how the hotel is organized for those of you who have not had the pleasure of being in the building. Right now, you can enter the building from Memorial Avenue as a pedestrian. We have an access way from Memorial, and there's a front entrance, and there's a front hallway. The building, you can gain access through the front. It's a self-check-in hotel. Everything's through key access, a code. You access the front rooms. There's 2 rooms on the first floor. There's an ADA room on the first floor, and then there's another room that has, one room has one bedroom suite, and the other room has 2. And then there's a common area in the back, and then there's a second floor that also has two room suites in it. There's an existing, what we put in was an ADA ramp in the rear parking lot, and that you access up through the ramp, and you can enter the back portion of the building. And you can also travel through that common hallway and enter the ADA suite, which is on this part of the building, here in the south part. As most of you who are on the planning board worked with us, you know that there's a driveway access from Smith Street that's through an easement here. And that easement...
Can I ask you to step on the other side of the
Oh,
podium?
sure, okay.
There you go. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the drive aisle access is from Smith Street here through 19 Memorial. So you drive down Smith Street here and through their driveway and in through this drive aisle here. That's how you come in through here now. We're here tonight to talk about potentially reworking that access way into 15 Memorial. The driveway access right now is a bit cumbersome and uninviting to the guests. The 19 Memorial owner has no trespassing signs. And it's also, you come down Smith Street, which is kind of a sloped road. It's a very tight access to come in through this. There's a stone wall here on both sides. It's a very tight condition right here, and it's quite uninviting with, we're inviting people to come and experience hauling, and then we have no trespassing signs. It's also, it's not as nice of an experience, we think, as what we're proposing. So what we are proposing would be that we would like to see if we could work with you to use the village street here, so that there is a natural way, we think, that you could come in through Main Street, in through the village street here, and then we have an access way here into our property, and we would like to redo the parking and have a drive aisle through this way, where we could have a turnaround space in here, keep our existing ADA access in the back of the building, and thus get our parking onto the back lot of our building here. We looked at our topography here. We do have a survey, a topographical survey. Right now, our retaining wall here to the rear yard, we have a very large rear yard. We would push the topography back and regrade, and thus we would create a flat parking space back here in the back. And we would be able to get then 10 spaces on our lot in the back by having access from the village street here.
12, I think. 12.
Well, this one has 10.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Since we submitted this plan, I'm gonna put this with help. We do have an alternate proposal which we actually like better, that we'd like to show you. In this one, we've actually kept the drive aisle where it is here, and then we've reworked the ADA space here and the access aisle next to it. We've actually brought the parking up against the fence line for 19 Memorial and brought it all the way around here. And this actually gives us 12 spaces on our lot. We still maintain a walkway to the rear yard, which I'll go over in a minute, but this gives us all of this nice level parking space in the back of the building. So that would be phase one, and that's really what we're looking to discuss with you this evening for the parking. I think that's
Yeah, and then just the challenges with the access. We did have a court situation with that while we were going through the planning board process, and the Judge Rosa did issue a decision affirming the easement and affirming our access, vehicles on foot, pedestrians, and for the uses that were contemplated, not limiting it to single-family residence as was asserted by the neighbor. But in spite of that, unfortunately, he's been telling people that they can't walk on the property. They haven't interfered with the vehicles, as far as I know, but they have told people that they can't walk there, and we did try to, through the village building inspector, get them to take down to widen the stone wall that's there that they had put up without a building permit. The building inspector did not agree that was he thought it was a retaining wall, even though there's nothing retained. And we didn't elect to challenge that, but it made it more difficult because it is somewhat narrow, and so the the village, the road that runs from Main Street, its terminus is at 15 Memorial. Has become a public street by prescription under Village Law 6-626, which says that if a road has been, even though it's not dedicated as a public road, if it's been used as such and maintained as such, snow plowing, maintaining, et cetera, for a period of at least 10 years, then it becomes a street in the same manner as any other street. And there's a lot of case law about that affirms the right of a property owner to get a curb cut, a driveway permit through such a street, even though it hasn't been dedicated. So we think that we're within our rights to have a driveway permit issued actually by the planning board. The driveway permit, excuse me, local law specifically provides for the planning board to have jurisdiction over the driveway permit, even though in a normal, when a site plan approval is required, which in this case it obviously is. So that's what we're looking to do. We think it'll be a really nice addition to the village. There's a lot of businesses that already use that street, Vinnie's and the card shop and the residences there. There's the walkway on the other side, and then of course the lane that leads to the upper CVS parking lot. Which we gave you some. Do they have the pictures, Meg? Yeah, you have the pictures that show. I think the first pictures are just of the parking available on Memorial Avenue, which is available for the warm months. November, not in anything before November 1st or 15th, I can't remember the date, and after April, whatever. There's so much parking, but then it becomes really problematic. In the winter months, people have a hard time kind of figuring out where to go, both for the Chapman House, as Mary had mentioned, but also for the other properties. And we try to work it out, but it certainly has hurt our business. When we initially opened up, we were able to use down below the railroad tracks, and our occupancy levels went way down after we were unable to do that anymore. So we've been trying to come up with ways to address that, and also to address the overall parking situation in the village during those winter months. This will open up, some additional spaces up above the upper CVS lot that potentially can be used for other things. So the next page just shows you the street. I'll call it a street because that's what the statute says it is. That shows you can see the first picture is showing Vinnie's, and then you can see it from the Chapman House and the various angles that show it's quite wide, and this access way will not affect any of the existing parking spaces that are used by the village and by the public currently. So in terms of our phasing plan is, the priority right now is to get these amenities in place so that we have a beautiful yard. There's a lot of things we could do with that property under the zoning, a lot more intensive uses, buildings. It's quite, the density in the village is really quite liberal in that regard, but we decided that we want to make this different than what's existing. We don't want any more apartments, and we just want a space that's going to be a space that we can all will be proud of, and hopefully people who come to the village will enjoy it. And I think we brought in thousands of people into the village over the last 7 years. They shop in the village. We constantly promote the other village businesses, the restaurants. We don't currently have any kind of food service or bar. We're looking to have a small one as part of phase 2, but we really are going to view that as a companion to that. We plan to use the local establishments it's really going to be a convenience place for the patrons of the hotel. It will be open to the public, but we feel it'll be bringing in people. Some of them will come to our place instead of McKinney or O'Connor's or whatever, but we think the added mass will more than offset that, and we're excited about that, and obviously with things like the pool, with noise, we'll have quiet hours after whatever the hours have been in other. I think it's 9:30 in other places, and we'll be very sensitive to the neighbors. And the nice thing is there is a fair amount of there's fencing and screening, and there's distances that we think will make any of that kind of impact de minimis. There is an issue with the urban regulations. If you have a site plan application and it's going to increase the assessed value of the property by more than 20%, then the urban regulations apply. We've done an analysis, and we pretty much comply with everything under both, whether it's the bulk regulations or the urban regulations. The two exceptions that we've identified are the frontage, the front setback, which under the urban regulations is 0, which I think we all know, and ours is we're obviously set back from the property 50 or 60 feet, but we won't be increasing the nonconformity of that that particular dimension, so that will not have any impact under 98, I think 9822 of the village code allows that without any kind of a variance if you're not increasing the nonconformity. The one thing that will be impacted is if we extend the building in the back by 12 feet, which we're proposing in phase 2, that if the urban regulations were deemed to apply, then that would trigger the need for a variance because the urban regulations have a maximum of 84 feet of the distance of the principal building from the front street. So you can only go back 84 feet. And we're going to be probably, I haven't done the measurements, but we're going to be probably 10 feet or so beyond that. So if and when we proceed to phase 2, we would confront, and if the urban regulations were deemed to apply, which we don't think they will, because the improvements that we're proposing are modest. We're going to have the building, the pool accessory building is going to be on grade. It's going to be a single floor, which is the maximum that's allowed for an accessory building under the zoning. And then the addition is going to be a one-floor addition with we're looking to have a rooftop deck on top of it, which would just extend out and give us enough space to create a modest cafe and bar area for, I think we have about 20 or 25 seats planned out for that.
Yeah. The existing building stops here, so this is a little, so you're looking, the existing building is 1 story back here, so this is what is now like a sun porch area. It's a building envelope piece though, and so the addition of the building is this piece right here.
I should also mention, we have hired a separate consultant to handle the permitting for the swimming pool. It will be classified as a commercial swimming pool. Jim Teed, who used to work for the health department, is going to be our engineer on that part of the project, and so he'll be shepherding it through to make sure it fully complies with all requirements in terms of the dimensions and the public safety, and the spa needs to be changed once every 2 weeks, and there's all sorts of requirements that we will, be abiding by.
What are you envisioning for the phasing? You kind of keep mentioning it. I just want to make sure. Like the first phase is the parking lot, and the second phase is everything else, or do you have a?
We'll go ahead, Mary. You got it.
Parking would be the first phase, so getting the access from the village street, paving the parking lot here, and restriping to comply. And then as you can see here, we're calling this as a 1 in 20 accessible route. So this is not a ramp. There's no ramping involved here. This is an accessible walkway. So it's a 1 in 20 route here. It would be a paved walkway with solar lighting along it.
And that's all in phase 1? Or is that phase 2?
Phase 1.
Phase 1, okay.
So we would like to get this all permitted and started as soon as possible. And then a pool here. And then this would be the pool house, or the accessory building here. And within that building, we would have an ADA bathroom. We would have the pool equipment in the building. We would have a fitness room and a sauna. And that building has a little bit of an overhang, lighting, outdoor lighting on it. And then we also have a hot tub here, separate from the pool. They're not joined together, so this could be used in the colder months. And then a cold plunge tub back in here. This whole area, so you come up here, you have a level landing, and then you have a fenced-in area that goes around here and attaches to the building, so it kind of fences in this rectangle here. This is all part of phase 1. You land here. This is all garden down in here, planting beds, garden beds here. And then so you level here, and then this 1 in 20 access route continues up to a higher level here. So this all gets regraded. And then back in here, more formal planted gardens back in here with lawn. And then we're exploring the idea of perhaps a permeable recreation surface, so we could perhaps do yoga back there, or some kind of sports back there. And that would be the later phase.
The other thing,
And
that-
Phase 2 is the addition
Yes.
on the main building?
Yes, so the building would be part of that phase too.
I'm sorry, the bar, or just what?
No, the bar would be a later phase.
Okay, so Phase 2 then is the pool building?
Yes, so, no, phase
No.
1 is the parking lot, the regrading, the pool, this accessory building back here
Mhm.
that has the pool equipment in it, the bathroom, the ADA bathroom, the sauna, and the fitness room.
it might be easier just to say that everything except the addition to the existing structure is phase 1.
That makes sense.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. And I forgot to mention, so the accessory structure, there's a separate section for the accessory structure laid out in the bulk table that we gave you guys, that shows how we comply with the requirements of the non-urban regulations for an accessory structure. And this plan, we believe, complies in every respect except we have it as a 0 setback from the property line, which if it's under the non-urban regs, it's actually 5 feet. So we would move that back 5, closer, so we would not need a variance for that. If it was to be subject to the urban regulations, then it would be a 0 setback, and it would be instead of a 15-foot high requirement, it would be a 1-story requirement, which I guess is pretty much the same. So more or less, there's really no changes in the zoning impact for phase 1 relative to whether the urban regulations apply or they don't. So that'll kind of give time.
Well, I mean, there might be a question asked there. I mean, if you're putting a commercial pool pump in there, is that, how much noise is that going to make for the neighbor or something like that? Or,
Well, that's a separate, the noise, I'm not saying that the noise, the performance standards are a separate issue. When I'm talking about zoning, I'm talking about the dimensional requirements. No, I understand you guys have jurisdiction over, the noise, and we're gonna, we would, I don't honestly know how noisy pool equipment is, but we'd have to make sure that it's, not gonna bother anybody.
To that building, so noise would be.
It would be baffled accordingly.
And as far as the environmental impacts, even though we have this 2-phase structure, I assume that the board, and you agree, that seeker will be conducted for the entire project, both phases altogether, and any subsequent variances that are identified as well.
Yes, I agree with that. Yep. Yeah, we did prepare an EAF, and we've done a preliminary review of it, and there was a pretty extensive review of seeker when we did our original approvals. There's obviously some new stuff that needs to be considered.
And what was that? The previous approval was just this past year?
Boy,
2024.
2020, and you just didn't anticipate this project at that time, I assume?
yeah, it wasn't. We had to see how the thing was going to work, and it was quite an investment.
Is this property?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
like,
road we're
I'm
talking
looking
about is
at it
right
right
here.
This is the access road you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
got it, I'm up to
Yeah.
speed now.
Yep.
Okay, so, but the current access is from the other side, is from the other side,
Right.
an easement?
It's an easement.
through- Yeah,
Yep.
Okay,
It's an 1882 easement.
all
And
right.
there's the court decision is in your paperwork.
And the accessory structure, or I guess the expansion that's gonna become the cafe and the bar, that's an accessory structure and an accessory use?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I thought about that, and it could be, for sure. But we may want to submit it as a principal use, because it is a mixed use, it would be a mixed-use building in that case.
In which case,
So-
what is a special use permit if it's mixed
No,
use?
no, it's permitted. Mixed-use buildings are permitted in the village.
In the B1 zone?
Sorry, I thought before, when you were talking about the accessory building, you were talking about the pool house
Yeah.
Correct,
infrastructure.
accessory
correct.
structure.
I think that if it's an accessory use, like the bar or restaurant would be an accessory use
Could
to
be.
the hotel.
The hotel.
It
It's
certainly
not,
could be.
it's not intended to be open to the public,
Oh,
right?
yes. Oh, yeah, it will be.
It is
Yeah.
intended to be open to the
Oh,
public.
it
yeah,
is,
and
okay.
And that's normal for an accessory use. It's got to be incidental and subordinate to the principal use to the accessory. That doesn't preclude the public coming in, but if it was, you know, I mean, if you use an extreme example, if only the public was using it, you know, then, so we're still thinking about how to do that, whether it makes more sense to do it as a principal use so we don't get into that debate. Because it is a mixed, it can be a, you know, as you know,
Right.
a mixed-use building is
Yeah.
permitted in the B1. And, you know, it really doesn't, in my view, it doesn't change anything in terms of what the requirements would be. Again, it's not going to be a big restaurant and bar. It's going to be modest in any event, but we don't want to be getting into arguments about, you know, have we gone over the threshold and what's, you know, what's incidental, what isn't. But, you know, when we apply, we'll be applying for a specified number of seats, and it's going to be modest. You know, it's not, we just don't have, we're not, even with the addition, we're not going to have a huge space there, and we're not planning on making it a crowded, you know, it's going to be a nice, you know, wine bar kind of thing with, you know, something different than what's in the village now, but using, and we're not planning at this point on having, you know, like a full-scale restaurant like McKinney or O'Connor's, but more of a, you know, maybe using some of their facilities and, you know, that kind of thing, so.
But it would be part of the principal building, right? I mean,
Yes.
it would be
Yes.
attached to it. So I don't know that it could, that could be an accessory structure when it's.
I couldn't tell from this distance whether it was a
No.
separate.
No, that's, I mean, that
Okay, that's what it was
Yeah, no,
sought
that
to
isn't gonna
clarify
be-
to
That's not
me.
gonna be the bar or the restaurant, that's the fitness center and,
No, that is, I'm saying the building in orange there, it sounded like she was asking if that was an accessory structure. And I'm pointing out that it's
no,
attached,
that's
so it's
part of the,
permitted.
that's just an addition.
Principal, rather.
Dave, the question is about the pool being open to the public.
The other facilities will be open to the public as well? Exercise, the permeable.
That will be kind of, there are issues with the health department. If it's open to the public, it has to be, there has to be a lifeguard in attendance at all times. We're thinking no. I mean, I haven't really had a deep dive conversation with Jim Teeds about this or with the health department, but my suspicion is it's going to end up being too involved to have it be open to the public. If we have, you know, a hotel pool doesn't need a lifeguard. You know, you have fencing and you have signage, and that's the health department regulations.
If just
so.
the hotel persons
Yes.
are going in a pool.
Yes, if it's limited to the guests of the hotel and their guests, I believe that's what the regulations
So
provide.
is this 12 parking space plan replacing the 10 parking space plan?
It was another alternate idea that we had.
We have 6 spaces there now,
Yeah.
so we'd be adding 6.
Do either or both of these comply with the new parking local law?
The new parking local law?
I don't think that would apply to this building.
I think local
That's
law is just
residential.
Just residential? Okay.
That's good to hear. I didn't know. Yeah.
Although, I wouldn't say that a bar open to the public is gonna, we'd have to think about parking for that as well.
Yeah, and
25
obviously the
seats.
planning board has, you know, it's your purview to decide what's reasonable. I mean, we think, if you look at the pictures, you know, on Memorial Avenue, people can access this from Memorial Avenue. They're going to be able to walk up around. We honestly don't see, I mean, none of the other restaurants in the village have any parking. So we're going to be, and a lot of the people who are going to be using it are going to be staying in the hotel anyway. So we think the 12 spaces combined with the massive amount of parking on Memorial Avenue, plus we rent the upper CVS parking lot, which adds more, so.
I wasn't suggesting that it wasn't enough, I'm just saying that this
No,
board absolutely has to think about that.
Absolutely, that's
Parking is an issue
your
around
bailiwick,
here.
yep.
So coming back to roads here, do you envision any changes to this road? Have you made sure that it's sized appropriately for any delivery trucks you want to get? Are you thinking about a sign on the end there? Do you want to give it a name? I mean,
I mean, listen, if the village would let us, we would love that, but that's not up to, we're not gonna do anything that is not permitted, but, it certainly would be nice to have.
Seems like your business should have a sign at the end, for example.
It would be great.
We might
Listen,
wanna
if we
consider.
if we could have a sign, I think it would be wonderful to, to avoid, because it is, people get confused, and so I haven't really looked into what would be required to get the village's approval of that, but we would.
And
certainly
then,
welcome.
lastly, I mean, have we talked to the village highway folks to see if, this was probably put in as a parking lot, is it gonna have the appropriate, structure to bear whatever you need to get in?
Well, I will say that it's used by the CVS lot, which we happen to now rent, but we didn't, that's a fairly recent thing. Vinnie's uses it. This building was DMV for, I don't know, close to a couple of decades. So this is a public, it's been used that way, and it's very, as you can see, and you can see in the pictures, it's very wide. And so we don't see, and we have ample frontage there that, and it's quite gentle slope down, onto there's a very slight downward slope onto our property. So Adam, I guess you can maybe talk about that aspect, but.
No, I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I understand the idea. It was like, just looking at the drawings made a ton of sense. Just want to make sure that that we don't approve this and then, for whatever reason, have to go back and, fund roadworks then.
Yeah, and we could provide figures to indicate vehicle maneuvering through that lot. We can do that over aerial imagery and things like that. We can back up.
I think that would be helpful to sort of show that it's as easy as you say it is.
Yep. Yeah, we can definitely provide model maneuvers through there to get us into the site and back out. That's.
And I also think, just as a starting point too, we need to be on solid ground that this is in fact a road. I know you weighed in on that it is, and respect that, but
Yeah,
we want to
no,
make sure that we're comfortable with that as well. We need to know that it is actually a public
Village Law
road.
6-626, and there's plenty of cases that deal with the exact issue that we're talking about, where in fact, there's one that involves a dead-end street where somebody, and there were some other factors that in that case, the municipality was claiming they had not maintained it, and they were fighting it, but the court said, doesn't matter. So, yeah, but I understand you're going to get your own independent.
Yeah, we need to know that.
For my
Obviously,
convenience,
before
can
we
you
can.
repeat that citation?
Village Law 6-626.
Got it. Thank you.
And
Love that.
yeah, and I can send, if I can email you the research I've done. Well, I mean, listen, I'm going to pay for it, so I'm happy to get you the head start.
That's fine.
That would be good to see.
Yeah.
You can send it to Amanda.
Yeah.
Lou, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, I certainly agree with the fact that that easement hasn't been a problem for you guys. It doesn't quite fit, accessing your property doesn't quite fit. It's a beautiful building, and coming in Oak Smith Street, coming in that way is kind of deterrent, in my personal opinion. So this would be an improvement. I agree with the other two gentlemen, and I don't doubt Dave that this is a public road, and accessing your property, getting the driveway, that would be a concern of mine as well, but if we can get over that hurdle, that would be great. As far as the parking, you're still using the CVS parking right now, David?
Yeah.
And your customers are coming down and using the village driveway, the village roadway anyway, as it is right now?
Correct. And and it's not, and even that is, it's not ideal, as you know, it's a steep
Right, it is.
thing, and it's fine, it's fine for older people. It's been a real,
I go up and down that driveway 2 or 3 times a day.
yeah,
And
both, it works, but it's not ideal.
It works, but
so,
it's not ideal.
yeah.
You know.
And we've created, I don't know if you've been on the property, but we've created walkways so that with this parking, it's very, we have signage, and we're improving the signage so that it becomes kind of like, all sort of a cohesive community walkable kind of a thing, so.
So you would get rid of the easement, you'd block that right off?
Nope, I'm not getting rid of that, no, I'm not getting rid of it, no, I'm not getting rid of that easement. But-
Was that Mary?
Mary, yes.
Yeah, when I thought when you.
No, but let me be clear though, it's not gonna be, if we
It's
get
not gonna be closed off.
No, but if we get this approval, we don't intend that it's gonna be used regularly by guests. It could be, but we would intend, because we don't want cars, using it as a through way, and it really wouldn't be very amenable to that, but, so the thought is we're gonna have a sliding gate, And we'll use it, you know, but they can walk through there, they can bike through there, I can drive through there, my employees can drive through there, you know, that kind of thing. But the guests, we're gonna have a parking spot that's right on the, under the, you know, the Plan B that we like. That was, got us a couple of extra spaces, so we really don't, you know, for that purpose, it's gonna be there, and if we need it, but, you know, for emergency access, and as some of you may recall, we do have, you know, confirmation, written confirmation from the fire department that they're comfortable with the access, and this was the access that they signed off on, was actually the current, you know, that what we're proposing, so. And we did remove a tree that they wanted us to remove too, so.
One last thing, on the CVS parking, what do you rent? It's the up on?
Yeah, the
little
upper
mound on
lot
hill?
there, the upper lot,
Yeah, the whole lot?
yeah,
And is that exclusive use?
yes.
It is, okay.
Yeah, yeah. We have some subtenants. We rented out some of the spaces that we don't need to some of the local people,
Okay.
so,
How many spaces are up there?
14.
Okay, thank you.
And you also rent some in the CVS lot, don't you, Dave? You-
That's what he was talking about,
Oh, I thought he
the
was talking
upper.
about- I
the
thought he
upper-
was talking about
Oh, no,
top.
I don't have any in the no,
Oh, you
just
don't
the
have any?
upper, just
Oh,
the
okay.
upper, yeah.
So the entrance is not, we're not talking about the village entrance, this road right here, we're talking about through the CVS?
No, 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 we're talking about the road.
Like,
The close one, the one I come in on.
Right past Vinnie's,
Yeah.
right past Vinnie's.
That upper
Yeah.
lot is about here that we're talking about, and we're saying the entrance is here.
Yeah, I see the sign from here.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the.
Yeah, so my thoughts is, so the wear and tear on a village road is the same, whether it's on the current coming down Smith Street or whether they're using now this new road that's going to be determined. Our attorney will take a look at that. The one thing I would suggest is if you could shift possibly the handicap spot, so the stripe portion is in front of that access way, so it is open, so if there is an emergency, nobody's parked there, so you can get out, use that gate, and the fire department, whoever, could have access the whole way. So you'd have to look at your slopes there and make sure they're wheelchair accessible,
We can
so
definitely do that.
that's my only suggestion,
That's a great idea.
but,
Makes a lot of sense.
so. Does anybody else have any other questions or discussion point? But, you know, we'll look forward to your formal application.
Thank you all
Yep,
very much.
thank you very much. Okay. For our next item on our agenda is 157 Charles Coleman Boulevard. It's also a sketch conference review. So if members of that application come forward, please. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Glasgow, CTNL Associates, the architect.
There's a microphone if you want to use it.
Nick Labasco with CTNL Associates, the architect and engineer for the project. Eric Cobb and Steve Hoyt are representatives of Pauling Engineered Products. Like you said, this is a sketch plan conference, and really what we're looking to do is give you the first introduction to the proposed plan of the facility. Overall goals that we're trying to work with here is first and foremost a collaboration with the local code enforcement office, with the end goal of improving the safety and quality of the employees in the work environment that they're at. Secondly, maintain safe and compliant operation for the owners and the employees, and set the stage for what we would consider a valuable community asset in years to come. Just some quick stats on the site. This is a zoned industrial site. As some of the public mapping shows, we do have significant flood zone and wetland on the majority of the northern portion of the site and going along the western boundary. It is a 21-plus acre site. We are currently gauging an approximate area of disturbance of less than 0.07 acres. and that can be more accurately determined as part of the formal application when we get there. At this point, and I'll go to the next couple pages. So the building in question is the northernmost existing facility on the property, about 67,000 square feet. Our exterior areas of impact are really restricted to repairs to an existing retaining wall adjacent to a loading dock, and some public or pedestrian access to the two main entrances to the building for employees and visitors. Outside of that, there might be miscellaneous equipment pads for mechanical units along the building boundaries, but outside of that, there's no other further actions or improvements being proposed at this point. There's no addition to the facility being proposed at this point. We are really trying to work with what is the existing roadways, parking, and loading dock areas of the facility. Within the existing building, this is an existing manufacturing building. There is some unused cafeteria and office functions up in this quadrant. The rest of it is or was manufacturing facilities that are either no longer part of the process or partially being used as extra space. And the proposed improvements. And again, first and foremost, it's about the safety and better work environment of the employees. We're going to have a new office core up front with updated offices, restrooms, and conference rooms. We're going to make improvements to the existing cafeteria and break room areas, give them a little bit more amenities to work with. We're going to take and develop new restrooms and locker rooms for the floor personnel to utilize. And through a lot of hard work on Eric and Steve's part, a much more efficient layout to their production process area. And I think something to emphasize here is we're taking a lot of their existing functions that are inefficient in their layout and their functionality, and we're pulling it all into, I would argue, a pretty small space without losing productivity or employees or functionality to the space. So in the long run, we're becoming a more efficient site, both energy efficient. This would also include our mechanical and ventilation equipment so that the air permitting, which I referenced in the application, we are going to continue to maintain and try and improve upon that. So at this point, I think what we're really looking for is just any further guidance from the board on what they'd like to see as part of the next formal application.
Are these existing processes that are just being rearranged in the same building they're already in?
Yes.
There's nothing new, there's no process moving in?
No new process is moving in, it's taking existing equipment or upgrading, right, and get some new equipment, but the same processes, and putting them in a much more flow-based center up there, right?
But you're moving them out of an existing
Moving
building?
out of an existing building into that building, yep.
Okay.
Existing to existing, just refurbished.
Are there any plans for that building that are going to be included in this?
So, for the ones that we're taking them out, yes.
I guess you'd call it the south building, I think?
Yeah, yes, we do. So as part of that, right, we're gonna have to come up with that, we'll call it a phase 2 type of approach, right, where we're gonna come to the board and say, hey, from an environmental perspective, right, these are the things we need to do to kind of take it down. Because at this point, right, those buildings are very old, right, we know they're, as we just said, right, they're in a flood zone, so we have some, we wanna make sure, one, we take them down, they don't need to stand, they're old and kind of past their age at this point, right, and then take into account the environmental aspects of the flooding area as well. So that will be part of it just down the road, right? You gotta make sure I can get into here, right? Continue to make product, continue to ship to our customers, and then work on that, yes.
No, that makes sense.
And it goes,
Are you talking about the overpressure rate building right now?
Yes.
Okay, pressure rate, how about the rubber division on the other?
Never.
Like, Is that Deborah?
I've only started about a year and a half, 2 years ago, so
Hey, Deborah.
I'm phoning a friend.
I'm the elephant in the room, 28 years
Yeah.
of all the history. Our old custom mixing area will actually be retained as it is the most northern part of the south building as warehouse space and maintenance. We will move everything else into the north building.
Yeah, so the building in question is the northernmost building. And the building Deborah just referenced is this portion right here. So we're basically moving all operations on the southern portion away from, I think there are a couple residential a little bit further off, but all processes and operations will move up.
So when they used to do the roofing,
Yes,
that, we're not talking about any part of that building, correct?
correct.
Okay.
Everything from what you remember as plastic extrusion
Right,
and down will no longer be there.
no longer be there.
So just from an environmental standpoint, in my view, and the board ultimately can decide what to do with this, but everything that is part and parcel of the same action ultimately should be reviewed for environmental impacts all at the same time. So if you're gonna be taking other buildings down, I would presume that the board would like to include whatever impacts that might have as part of the environmental review for this action under seeker.
It doesn't mean you have to actually do the work all at the same time. We just need to understand everything that's involved in demoing it.
So it means we could, if the board approved, right, we could start phasing and refurbishing that building 10, right, and moving our equipment and stuff up there while we continue to do the environmental, so while we do it, or does it all have to be done before
That we would
anything
do
can?
an environmental review for the whole thing, and then if you wanted to, wait on the actual approval of a second, the second phase,
Right.
and kind of split up the approvals, I think that.
I think we might be talking about two different things here. So there was an environmental remediation of the property at some time in the past, right?
Yes.
And demoing a building of this age is probably involving some materials that are sensitive and need to be handled accordingly, right?
Just for some clarification, the remediation action, which I think I referenced as 1992,
Mhm.
is actually, back in this area next to the building we're talking about.
Okay,
So the area of what's happening down in the south end is actually outside of that remediation area.
okay, well, that's good to know.
There are still maintained monitoring wells and equipment back here as part of their ongoing operations.
Okay,
And I think maybe just for some clarity, this is about collaborating with code enforcement, getting employees in the operations up into a safe environment,
mm-hmm,
and allowing us to do the proper and adequate due diligence on the rest of the buildings, so we have a good plan of action for that, which may take a little more time.
understood. So, I mean, I think the actualities of moving people, moving equipment, moving processes, and demoing can be phased however you want it to be. But us reviewing it from a theoretical standpoint as to whether it has significant adverse impacts on the environment to make it comply with the state's environmental quality review means that we have to include it as part of the action we're reviewing, because you do intend to demo that building as part of your overall action to move the employees and processes to the northern building. At least that's how it sounds.
I mean, if it turns out, right, we'll always adjust, right, if that's the case and we move it up and we feel and we're working with the
Right.
board that maybe we just let it stand, right, then there's options.
Yeah, I mean, you could, if you decide not to demo it, you cannot demo it. But it's just that, if, for instance, there's asbestos-containing materials or lead paint, and you're gonna demo it, or consider demoing it, then we need to consider the potential for significant adverse impacts related to that, which are mitigatable, so, yeah.
The drawing that you have that shows the entire property, if you can show that, and if you maybe could declare that, or something like an overall site or phasing plan, and just kind of show the steps. That's what you're proposing at this time, and then you look at the entire property when you look at the environmental impacts. And so, some of the information you won't know because it's later, it's a phase that you haven't really investigated yet, but like, for instance, the demo portion. But your plan is obviously at that time, whatever phase that is, to take that down, per code requirements, so, at that time. So maybe that's a suggestion.
But the only other work that's being done is just to fix up the paths and the wall.
Correct.
And some pads for equipment? There was something else that was said.
Yes.
Okay.
There may be some exterior ground-mounted mechanical equipment, just not special process equipment. That's all internal to the building. This would be more just the HVAC ventilation.
Oh, I see.
Fresh air type stuff.
Yeah.
On the demolition side, we're not taking everything south of there, it's just a piece of that, correct? Or is it everything south of the north building, the whole site? How much is going to, yeah, that's what I thought, okay. Thank you.
Rob, you have anything?
I'm just curious why we need site plan approval if we're just remodeling the inside. It's not a building department issue, and even,
Yeah,
even take it.
Amanda said Chris referred it to us.
Come over and go through the process, present this to you, make sure you're aware of what the plan is here.
And he said, and advised you that what permit would be required? No,
Pretty vague.
just said, see what the planning board says about this.
All
All
right,
right,
I guess
we'll dig into that.
yeah.
the thought we had was, we're still gonna be coming back to you as far as anything as for a
See,
future
yeah.
phase. That's not even a question in our minds. The question really right now is trying to work with the code department, how can we get this done a little more efficiently and expedited so that we can then do the due diligence on the southern portion, but get the employees out of that area quicker.
To your question, I think there are definitely town codes that say if there's just a change, similar use inside the same building and there's no construction,
It's
then it could
technically
just
not even a
be,
change of occupancy.
yeah, which sometimes requires a special use permit, I think, but I'll review the code. Before you apply for anything, we'll confirm what approvals you make.
Let us give you some direction. Do you have some sense of what the full plan would be if we want to do an environmental review of the whole site? It's the only thing I can think of that might be.
Like, are you gonna have new parking where the old building was, or you haven't even thought that far yet?
I think this just goes down into cost. We have to review the cost of the demo of this building, or the cost of keeping the building up. That's farther down the road than what we need. Right now, this is mainly to put the foot forward to let you guys know that we're trying to comply to every code or regulation here in Pauling. We want to bring the town in, and just in Chris's perspective as a town inspector, he can have a building that he can say this building complies to every law that Pauling needs, and for us to go into these renovations. I think that conversation with the demolition of the building is far down the road than any of the plans that we have right now. But it's a cost analysis of this. If it's more beneficial for the company to keep the building up, then the building stays out. We'll find some other use for it. Maybe we'll make it storage. If the company decides that it's less cost effective to demolish the building, then we'll put it together what it takes in terms of sampling the ground, looking at the specs and things like that. It's all a proposal, but it's such a big piece of the pie that is way down the road for this.
Do you have any material changes planned for the outside of the building?
Limited. Some of the warehouse area windows are not even close to being energy efficient, and those would get swapped out. But beyond that, roof repairs and some selective replacement, all code compliant, and then just the office area up front, there would be some insulation and energy efficiency thermal improvements to that area because it's going to be office area rather than
we're also designing this to reduce our emission points, reduce our footprint. You know, we're tracking the amount of energy that we use and things like that on the making of this building. So it's going to be a really good hybrid for the engineering products.
Lou, you have anything? Guys, good? All right. Thank you very much. We look forward to the next step, and obviously our attorney and the code enforcement officer will get back to you as well for clarification.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for 48 East Main Street. At this time, this property is located in New York City DEP watershed, and I am an employee of the New York City DEP, and I have gone to the Conflict of Interest Board, and part of my approval of being allowed to be, or the honor to be a member of this planning board was to recuse myself anytime a property came in front of the board that was in the watershed. So I'm going to recuse myself, and I'm going to ask my vice chair to take over the public hearing. Is that Rob? Thank you.
That works. I'll slide over. How you doing, Kurt?
Good evening, everyone. Kurt Johnson, Jager Designs, here on behalf of the owner, Archer Solomsky. And we also have Evan Pendleton from Insight Engineering, who's our site engineer on the project. I noticed a lot of familiar faces in the audience that heard me drone on a couple weeks ago at the ZBA public hearing, but here I am again. I guess I could just go through the highlights of the project that we can talk about here. So I don't know if we want to turn this that way or how we want to.
I think we have copies and we've seen it. If you want to turn it to the audience, it'd be good.
So basically, we're at 48 East Main Street. It's a 0.43 acre parcel on the corner of East Main Street and Spring Street. It's in the B1 zone. And there is an existing multifamily residence on the property. It's 5 one-bedroom units in that existing building. What we're proposing is to actually take that building down and construct a 3-story building that would contain 15 one-bedroom units in that. So there's a net gain of 10 residential units on the property. It does need, since urban regulations in the zoning code do apply, we do need to get, and we also need to get site plan approval as well as special permit to allow residential uses on the first floor of this building. I'm working with the board, so I think that the location on the site of the property was the preferred location based on the size of the building and the site layout. I did, at the ZBA, I did show something. I think you might have smaller copies with you, but it's a very schematic site layout applying the urban regulations. So basically we built on the front property line and Spring Street frontage here, so it results in a much larger building mass on the site than what we're proposing. So the variances we do need, which we do need several variances on this, are actually to allow us to make a smaller building that would have less impact on the site than is what currently mandated in the zoning regulations, require us to build a larger building and closer to the road. With this proposal, we have 19 parking spaces, and of those 19 spaces, we would dedicate 1 assigned parking space per each unit, so that's 15 spaces. And there'd be 4 additional spaces for visitors or overflow on that. Since we did apply, because at the time we did apply for this, for the site plan approval, it did comply with zoning and actually had additional parking spaces. And in the interim, the village board did change the zoning to require 1.5 parking spaces per unit. So we're in a deficit now of 4 spaces, so we need a variance for that. I will mention the Institute of Transportation Engineers did studies on buildings very similar to this, and they're vast studies, and it's 1.7 or 1.27 parking spaces required for a building of this size and this use with 1-bedroom apartments per unit, so that equals out to 19 parking spaces on that. So we're in the study range on that also. We still do need to get a variance that would allow us to do that. Let's see. And then just, we had some renderings of the proposed building. We had pulled the building back from East Main Street a little bit to open up the view shed as you drive north on East Main Street. So you see the church and the little building in the front. So this kind of tucks back, somewhat in alignment with Jillian and Terry's building as you drive north on East Main Street. And we're just trying to keep in compliance with the architectural guidelines of the village as well as we apply those. So that's a general overview.
All right, thanks, Kurt. Does any of the board have any comments before we open it up to public comment?
Not right now. Make a motion to open the public hearing.
So I just have a comment before you second. Just to keep things orderly and fair, I see we have a few people that may want to speak tonight. Everyone here, including the board, are your friends and neighbors, so please just be respectful, to the applicant and to also your neighbors, which he's also a neighbor. We're going to set a time limit just for 3 minutes, so if everybody gets a chance to speak. If there's time left at the end and you would like to speak again, we might hear you at that point, if we have time. So just please be respectful of each other and just let whoever's up in the front of the room speak. And if you're seated, just wait till your turn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, please just state your name and address and come up to the microphone, or the podium. Yes, please.
Who's managing the time?
Sure. My name is Terry Stewart. I'm married to Jillian Stewart, who owns the Jillian Stewart Real Estate Building right up the road here. And we will be immediately impacted by this project. My apologies to Mr. Musella, who heard all of this at the ZBA meeting. I'm going to keep this within the 3 minutes if I can. I'm going to just try to point out what I think are the most important points that hopefully you folks will consider when you're making your decision. Number one is traffic. You all know Spring Street. Right now, getting into and getting out of Spring Street is very difficult, especially getting out of Spring Street if you're coming from the east, coming up the little hill and looking to the right and to the left, and the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is non-existent. People are flying up the hill and they're coming down the road, at similar speeds. Adding another at least 15 automobiles to that particular intersection, I think, is going to be very difficult. I had suggested at the ZBA meeting that perhaps Spring Street could be made one way going to the east and around and come out Coulter Avenue. I don't know. I mean, it might help. But certainly, and I think you'll hear perhaps from some of these other residents who live on Spring Street, that Spring Street it's a narrow street, and the additional traffic, I think, could be a problem. Parking is another second sort of major issue, we believe. As you've already heard from Kurt, each unit is going to be allotted one parking space. So let's assume that everybody who lives in the building owns one vehicle. Well, that's 15 vehicles. In today's world, there are a lot of people who own more than one vehicle. Where are they going to put them? There are 4 extra spaces, perhaps there, but then what are guests going to do? People coming to visit. And we're concerned because we happen to be directly across the street and we have parking. Our parking is used by our tenants. So we would be very concerned that overflow might
come in there. As a result, I think we're going to end up putting up a sign indicating that parking is for, tenants of 54 East Main only, and violators will be towed. It's a pity that we have to do that, but we might have to do that. So parking is obviously another issue. I would wonder about the comprehensive plan and how that might relate to this project. The building that's there now, there are various opinions as to how it looks, but it has historic value. It's been there a long time. And having to demolish that building, that might be a shame, and it might not work with the comprehensive plan. Again, this building is going to be somewhat stark. It's going to sit right out on East Main Street. We have other apartment buildings already. One has been constructed. The other one is in the process, up behind the church here. Is there the demand? I don't know the answer to that one. If it fills up, then of course we know there was the demand. But at the moment, we don't know that. So is there the demand for more housing of this type? One bedroom. Is there a demand? And then what about the density issue? This has got 4.3 acres. And again, they need a variance to do the 19 parking spaces because they're supposed to have 23. That's one of the variances they need. They have 5 variances they're looking for. And one thing that I mentioned to the ZBA is any project that comes before this board or any municipal board where you need 5 variances for something, how does the code react to that? If the variances are all granted.
I hate to cut you off, Mr. Stewart. We don't have anything to do with the variances.
No, I know that.
That's a separate board.
But this is part of the whole project.
Sure, I understand.
If in fact you need 5 variances, then why have a code? It kind of, whatever. You're correct. You're not part of the variance process, except that if they don't grant the variances, now you've got an issue. Okay, or the developer does, anyway. And finally, again, you grant all those variances, and you've got a non-conforming building or area that's going to be just totally non-conforming. So I think parking and traffic, what the building looks like, these are all planning issues. And obviously, we would appreciate your looking at them very seriously, and I know there are other people here who feel the same way, who are residents of Spring Street. Thank you very much.
Thank you. How'd we do?
7.
No, that's good.
I'm Sarah Wooden, and I live at 6 Spring Street, which is immediately adjacent to this project. Incidentally, as Steve probably remembers, I've lived there over 40 years, and at one point, Spring Street was indeed one way. They did try that. It didn't work, but it's been tried. So if you consult back in the records, there's probably the reason why they changed it back. You remember that? Yeah.
And that was before it was a lot of traffic.
Yeah. One of my biggest concerns is parking. That will certainly impact me if people start parking on the street. It's very narrow. It's almost one car can get through on that area right by Terry's building. There's not a whole lot of room for 2 cars to get through side by side. If people start parking on the street, which they can't in the winter, but during the summertime, that's going to be an issue. I think that the village changed the parking regulations to increase the spaces required for a reason. I don't think it's unreasonable to think that in a one-bedroom apartment, you may have 2 earners, both of which need a car to get to work. So you could potentially have 30 cars. I think 19 is a little low on the estimate of the spaces required. And I'm concerned for my quality of life, taking down that building and then putting up another one. I don't know if that's your purview. There's groundwater issues in that area. I have a sump pump. The house that used to be the Russells, I know they have a sump pump and have had water issues in their basement. I'm not sure if anybody's realized that there's running water under parts of that street. When we get heavy rains, there are actual springs under there. It's not just what comes down off the mountain that's live all the time. There are other ones that are dry most of the time.
Is that why they call it Spring Street? Is that why they call it Spring Street?
Yeah, that's why it's Spring Street. My introduction was having the fire department come and pump out like 18 inches of water my first year in that house. So I think that there are groundwater issues. I don't know what kind of environmental work has been done, and I don't have the expertise to judge any of that anyway. But hopefully that's been considered. Anything else? Those are my concerns.
Thank you.
Okay? It's going to have a big impact on me because it's right there.
Thank you.
3 minutes even. Give her an award.
Kelly Liftland. I own 10 Liftland Lane, which is going to be on the back side of that building. I have all the big trees there. I've talked to Kurt a little bit, and we talked at the last meeting, the zoning meeting. So I'm concerned about my tall 40-year-old trees. That back end of that property is going to come pretty close. So as they dig there, that's one concern. I agree with everything Terry and Sarah said. My other concern is when they demolished the old building, do we know if there's asbestos in there? And how are we going to contain that? Because I have my grandchildren right on the other side, and that's a big concern for me. How is it going to affect our property values? I think especially for Sarah, she's going to be right on top of it. You know, if we could maybe just, narrow it down a little bit. That's a lot of apartments in that little postage stamp property. It's going to be a lot of traffic. But those are my concerns as well as what they had already spoke. But the asbestos, if it's in there, really needs to be done right and contained, because that's just going to flow to me, to Sarah, to the Stewarts, and that's a health issue.
Thank you.
Steve Wolf, I live at 11 Spring Street. I wrote you all a letter. Did you read it?
Yes, sir.
That's the way I feel. I think this is going to ruin our quality of life on Spring Street. I think it's going to lower our property values. I don't want to look at it off my front porch when I've been looking at the sunset for all these years. I don't want to look at the back of the building. I'm sorry, I'm very much against this. So you know where I am, okay?
Is it the board's policy to add any written comments into the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Holly Hoffner. I'm actually speaking on behalf of my mother, Marion Hoffner, who owns 18 Spring Street. And I'm actually agreeing with a lot of what everybody else has said. I'm not anti-development. It's just that I don't think that this is the right lot for a project of this scope. And a lot of it's the same thing that people are saying. There's already inadequate parking at the building, and people are already parking on the street. There's actually somebody that has a pickup truck with a trailer that lives in that building and is already parking on Spring Street, which is limiting the access to it. As everybody's pointed out, Spring Street's narrow, and it ends up being made narrower by all the cars that are constantly parking on the street. And it's actually, the east side has a sidewalk, the west side does not. The people that are on the west side, their front yards all get chewed up because of everybody swinging around the cars that are parked on the street. And as Terry Stewart pointed out, it's not easy getting in or out of the street. On the end where the apartment building is going to be at 48 East Main Street, it's a sharp turn, there's a telephone pole, the building is very close. On the other end of the street to get out onto Coulter Avenue, on one side there's a fence, on the other side there's a hedge. At times you almost have to pull out halfway into the road to be able to see to get in or out of, well, basically get out of the street, like getting in. That can be a little bit dicey too if you've got somebody coming at you head on at times. And it's just, this project is just kind of going against the code because it's basically saying that the code says it's not supposed to create undue congestion and it's supposed to allow traffic circulation. And I'm just concerned that this project is going to have a negative impact and that it's going to create a lasting hardship on the neighborhood. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Ed Mardowa. I live at 13 Spring Street. I agree with everybody as far as the amount of traffic that's going to be there, the parking, the problem. I also want to bring up the fact that the infrastructure around there, the water and sewer lines were put in probably about 45 years ago. Last fall, we had 2 water main breaks up there. I don't know if it had anything to do with the apartments that are already up there, but I just think with the jackhammer going for this new one, it's just going to shake everything up and could get even worse. But I do agree with the parking and the traffic.
Thanks, Ed. We have anybody else?
Yes, I'd like to say something.
Sure.
My name is Gillian Stewart. I have the building right next door to where this other building is going to be built. So my building is very pretty. The 2 houses across the street are very pretty. The manse is very pretty. And the Baptist church is very pretty. And then we're going to put this monstrosity up there. Doesn't anybody care about what's happening to the village and how it's going to look when you come in now and you have this odd building there? I rest my case. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want me to respond to a couple items, or?
That's up to you. Do you guys oppose it at all on the board? Please.
There's a couple things that were mentioned. I just want to reiterate that the comprehensive plan that includes the urban regulations as well as the zoning code, which includes the urban regulations, dictate that a building of this size be built on the property, which is a business zone. So our variances are to reduce the impact of this building from what is mandated by the zoning code. So I think we worked with the board in trying to make that building, looking at sightlines to make the building smaller on the site. Yeah,
In fairness, Kurt, that building was never going to get built. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, but that's not.
But
what I'm
saying is, if you apply the urban regulations in their form to say, this is how the building must be built, that is something that you might end up with. So that's just yeah, correct, but that's a starting point. So I'm just saying, just to look at the zoning code, that's what you could start with. But I think we've worked with the board and to relocate the building slightly and work around it. So I just wanted to reiterate that. So it's really not, we're not asking for a larger building or building something closer to the property lines, which typically a variance would add. We're actually looking to make the building smaller. And in terms of asbestos, as part of the demolition permit that would be required with the building department, much like we did on Pauling Commons, you had to do an asbestos survey prior to release of the demo permit, and if there was mitigation required, it would be done before the demo.
Overseen by
the building department, yes.
Correct.
So,
Those are just a couple things I just wanted to mention.
I don't know if Evan wants to mention anything about groundwater or whatever, but because we've done, their Insight Engineering has done the drainage study and analysis is being reviewed by Labella, so.
Yeah, so we did a full stormwater report for this. We did soil testing on site. We did find acceptable depth to ledge rock where we could install infiltration system per the New York State Stormwater Design Manual. We did infiltration testing that proved out acceptable percolation rates through the soil. We've addressed all stormwater comments to date from Labella, so this is also a redevelopment site. There's already existing impervious on site. There's a slight increase, which we are mitigating through the use of stormwater practice. Currently, the stormwater runoff from the building gets collected in the gutters and goes through the downspout and just discharges to grade. We're collecting the runoff from the entire development area, picking it up in a collection system and sending it to that infiltration practice. So during the smaller storm events, there wouldn't be any runoff from the site. It'd all be infiltrated into the ground. It would just be through some of the larger storm events, you may have some situations where, consistent with current conditions, where you have runoff that leaves the property. But again, it would be less than the current condition because we are capturing a lot of that runoff.
But where's it going?
It's being infiltrated, so stored in a stormwater system and infiltrated into the ground.
Just to the ground. But what if it can't handle it? Because it's going to come to me and it's going to go to Sarah.
Into the ground, how far down does your collection system go before it disperses? Because my basement is like, I don't know, 10 feet down.
Well, I think the concern from the public when it comes to that is they're already getting groundwater in their basement at times. So I think their concern is if it's staying on site and it's already saturated the ground, that infiltration system's doing nothing except for adding more water to the ground. It's already has a high water table during those events.
We can look into it further. I know there's not a lot of area or existing municipal stormwater systems to connect to. In our area, I know Main Street, there is some collection, but it's above our site. I don't know of anything on Spring Street that's in the vicinity, but we can look into it further.
I think you could tap into East Main Street.
We can look into it.
Aren't there certain regulations about stormwater?
We'd have to talk to the Water and Sewer Commission to get better clarification on that.
I think that's what you need.
You're not allowed to dump it in Brook, right?
I wouldn't think so.
No, it'd have to be.
That's New York City water supply, you know?
Can you come up to the podium?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm getting class. Can't hear the video.
So stormwater regulations require us to mitigate the runoff from the site.
Right. I think the big thing is if we could just explore whether or not that capture system is going to work in that area. I know you have, it has good drainage down there, but again, if the water table, if there's a bowl down in that entire area, then yes, it's not really helping the neighbors in that respect.
Yeah, understood.
If there's a lot more impervious surface and it's just getting pumped to the back of the property next to the neighbors in a big well under the ground, basically, which is, I think, yeah, we'd have to.
So let me just state that the state prefers infiltration.
Correct.
That's the practice that they ask you to look. I know. I'm just clarifying some things.
I know. It's practice.
That's the practice they asked you to look to first. But can you look into detention on site?
Yes. Again, it's really more a matter of from that detention system, where do we bring it to?
Right.
So, but we can look into it further.
Thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure, Ed?
I just want to know why that piece of property was chosen. I mean, and I don't know what's going on up where Henson's is, the A place, but there's a lot in the back off of Henson Way.
Yeah, that's a separate piece of property that we're not going to discuss tonight, but I'd imagine because he owns the property is why he wants to build on it. I'm just saying, I'm not trying to be, why that piece of property, I don't know. You can ask him that maybe after the meeting, why he chooses to buy certain pieces of property. It was available for sale.
Nobody ever saw that it was for sale. Nobody knew it was for sale.
It was for sale.
Well, obviously, yeah, but nobody here knew.
There is a record of the transaction in the Main Street and the rent. They had all the record. They were selling the property.
Yeah, I just, why you never saw a sign or anything.
People say,
Yeah, all right. I think we're gonna.
I said they don't have to tell us.
I think it's,
Yeah, all right. I would actually like to leave this open, the public hearing for now. I'd like more feedback to see what's going to happen with the zoning board before we even make a determination on seeker, because it could come back as something different than we're looking at right now based on the variances they may or may not get.
Well, they can't make a variance approval or denial until they complete seeker.
Right.
Until seeker is completed, rather.
We have to complete seeker review before, it's exactly as Karen said, before the ZBA can, and I believe they've already opened and closed their public hearing.
No, it's still open, but we can't act on, the ZBA can't act.
Until we close our public hearing?
I mean, it's up to the board to keep it open, but if you think you've received all it sounds like the comments that have been made here tonight are the same or similar comments that were made at the ZBA. So if you think additional information will come forward, I think that could be valuable.
Possibly, and yeah, we have to make a determination before the ZBA can make it.
Yes. We've prepared some draft documents, so.
Yeah, I saw them.
And you can make a seeker determination and still keep the public hearing open. You don't have to close the public hearing before you complete seeker. But the risk of that is that if additional information comes at the later public hearing that should have, been included in the seeker determination, then you may have to reopen seeker, but you could make a determination on seeker and still keep the public hearing open.
The ZBA public hearing is open until, I believe, May 31st. Does anybody remember the date?
Whatever the next meeting.
Yeah, whatever the next meeting is, I think it's the 28th.
And that was, I think it was June 14th.
No, I think the end of May it was.
The
Oh,
minutes.
yeah, May, yeah, okay.
May 27th is the
Yeah.
next ZBA meeting. The 27th.
So my concern is if the ZBA were not to grant the variances and they come back with a building, say, that is on the street, as that so we can avoid having to even get some of these variances, if that's the case, we're looking at a completely different building, and it may not fit into the character of the community as far as getting through seeker at that point. Which it should. I mean, if that's what the comprehensive plan says, and they didn't need those variances, then I guess it's qualifying for the objectives of what the goals are.
You're talking about bringing it right on.
Yeah, if that's the route it were to go.
But this is the proposed plan.
Right.
This is the plan that is being.
Right, the
If
one on the
there's-
top.
It seems like if there's significant change to that, then it would open up a whole new can of worms.
We would
It would be a new seeker.
Yeah, right.
It would be a different plan.
If there would be.
Well, if that's the,
Right.
if that's the
So as for
case.
this plan,
All
I
right.
think, we go based off of what is being applied for. And even once we conclude seeker, if the ZBA doesn't grant the variances, then they can come back and say, all right, now we're doing something different. And that's fine, we wouldn't have approved the site plan or special permit by that time. Are there additional changes that we're requesting them to make, Karen, at this time? Other changes to the plan itself?
There's
I saw
very,
you had a couple
very
comments.
minor housekeeping, I think, issues.
I mean, yes, what remains are more minor engineering questions. I mean, we want to obviously explore the stormwater issue a bit more. I mean, they are meeting the state's requirements for coverage under the general permit. I mean, they're doing everything that they're supposed to do. But, you know, obviously, we want to take another look and see if there's something more that they can do to assuage the.
Mitigate.
Yeah.
But as far as, I mean, in my view, we're in a position to make a secret determination this evening.
That's what, yeah, if you're not.
Close, no, never mind, sorry.
Close the public hearing?
I just,
No, it was-
I realize it's
Yeah.
part of the whole thing.
If you don't mind, one final comment. And I didn't hear, I know you were talking about seeker, but it seems to me, to state the obvious, that seeker review is going to become extremely important in this particular matter.
As it is in every matter, potentially. And if you'd like to have an attorney-client conference about this, we
Given
could.
stormwater issues, et cetera.
We can.
Sure.
Yeah. I think you should.
Okay.
Can I get a motion? Or do I have to make a motion?
What are we motioning?
Attorney-client meeting.
Is that a motion?
I don't do
I
it.
mean, is it a motion?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Attorney-client meeting for what purpose specifically, or just
Up to the
general?
chairman to discuss the pros and cons of these action options.
Okay. Make a motion for an attorney-client meeting.
Second.
For the purpose of the seeker determination tonight.
How to proceed procedurally.
Yeah.
Does that happen now?
We'll go and
Okay,
and come back. Was there a vote?
I get a second? Did you second it?
Second, yeah.
He
He
seconded.
motioned it, yeah.
I motioned, he seconded.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed?
Should I open the office? Yes.
There's a bathroom open.
Let's go in the back.
The assistant chairman wanted to have a meeting with the attorney, village attorney.
Right, so it's, so they can, that would be like the biggest thing that they.
They fill in the property.
And I'm aware of, but that would literally be the biggest thing that they do is her work. That goes right to the and then, runs back to a certain
I can go forward if somebody wanted to fix that house. Leave it the way it is.
If we consider an addition on the back of that.
Yeah, put a little more units on it, you know?
It's,
Oh, what, don't forget the parking? Yeah, I remember when I used to walk like that.
That's what I was just saying to them, so you remember it too.
Yeah, there was some lady in town who was like an environmentalist, and she came to me when I was in charge of buildings and grounds at the Appeals Center. She came to me and told me we were silting up a broken road in the habitat for the snipe, you know? So I told her, I said, how long have you been around here? She said, well, one thing that she said something about, I remember when it brought you so long, South America.
Those two houses up there on East Main Street.
I mean, what they did with the urban properties, it's just like, if that bar came out, like any from my side, and the other side, you don't see windows and.
Yeah, and it's beautiful inside.
Yeah, so I don't know what's going on with cars.
For that bar?
Originally, they were going to
Well, I'm actually going to stay. The old house is in the way of the she's still alive. No, she was right. But, you know, after that, then yeah, I can buy my kids. Someplace where I've got 3 families, because at that point, why would I stay?
Yeah.
As it is now, I put in down Spring Street and I come around this way. And because it's a little easier to get out. But in the winter, when there's wind and snow on that, I have to.
Yeah, they tried for a while.
And it's, I have to pull out one way in the road to see what's coming. It's impossible.
Start running heavy trucks over that little bridge. Bridge is going down.
Right?
The way it is now, you know, we've got, but in the old days, it was really well. That's what's traffic on Spring Street.
So, and it's way back. Yeah. And then it's still on the side of the
Their father, like, had many, pretty exactly like you, but that's
Spent $300 million on that house, now it doesn't show the sidewalk. I had to turn around and I wanted to turn because Smith Street was standing in the road. I'm waiting for the bus. Because the guy didn't show the sidewalk, so he couldn't stand there. So I had to turn around and go the other way, because they had no way to go. Would you know that place was
I did.
the house?
You know who called me? Sue Plessy.
Oh, yeah.
Did she call you when she was putting it up for sale?
She
or
called
she
me.
sold it?
She said I didn't even get a sign up in it.
Well, they,
So Brian would have to do it.
it was listed, and it was a fee,
This thing goes through.
That's the first we got the name on it. Like second letter.
Yeah.
I work now. There was a transfer from New York City.
Absolutely.
And they bought a school, so that they developed it, so it's like they made up the neighborhoods like we're talking about here. It's on the other side. Now people like schools are signing off for school buildings. So now traffic developers buying schools to redevelop into a park.
So many people, when I was saying, I can imagine how many times cars are going one way. You know,
It's one of those issues, this is one of those situations.
But I heard now, sorry, that I thought I understood. I'm not really sure what's going on.
I always thought Chris Johnson had they would put a parking garage back in his Dutch house. Dutch house parking. Yeah, it's not a good idea, you know. I'm going full in the key bank, but there's no parking spaces, I go into the bank and you know. They must be in the room. They're in the office. Yes, I'm gonna go out just.
Do we need a motion to close the
We need a motion
meeting?
to keep the
To say
public
we're
hearing
coming
open.
back from the attorney-client meeting?
Yeah, no? All right,
I believe we have come back.
We can just come back, yeah.
all right, we're back.
Okay. So let's make a motion. I make a motion to keep the public hearing open until June 9th at 6:30 PM. That's the date of the next meeting for the Pauling Planning Board, or Village of Pauling Planning Board.
Yes, we have a motion?
We have a motion? We have a motion on the floor?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? It was-
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, you have before you a full environmental assessment form, Part 2, which your consultants have filled out. There are a couple areas marked as potentially having an environmental impact, but because of the reasons listed in the document, ultimately consultants found that no or small impact may occur. Those are in the areas of impact on land, impact on groundwater, impact on plants and animals, and impact on transportation. And as I said, ultimately, all of those were marked for no or small impact may occur, so the board may adopt this document. If you find that this is agreeable, this is the planning board's document. So if all of these findings are, the board members are in agreement, you can move to adopt this document as prepared.
Can I get a motion to adopt Part 2 of the FEAF?
I make a motion that we adopt Part 2 of the FEAF for.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Now we have also the full environmental assessment form, Part 3, prepared by Karen. This just really expands on the findings of the Part 2 in those areas where no or small impact were found to occur. And Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, all of these areas are found that there will ultimately be no adverse environmental impact in any of these areas.
No significant adverse.
No significant adverse impact.
Environmental impact.
So if the board agrees with these findings, you've reviewed. Is there anything specifically, Karen, you want to say about any of these areas?
Sure, I can go through them.
That would be great.
Okay, so as you mentioned before, we were concerned about an impact on land. That was in part because of the high bedrock and the need for excavation of hard rock. We understand that blasting's not anticipated, that ripping is anticipated, mechanical ripping. That will occur on a temporary basis. We do recommend that as a condition of the site plan approval, that the ripping or hammering activities be restricted to weekdays only and potentially outside of the morning period of the day. The construction will last more than 1 year. Yes, the construction period is anticipated to be 18 months. So again, you know, we should continue to consider what conditions could be applied as part of the site plan approval to, you know, mitigate the effects, the nuisance. Moving forward into plants and animals, I believe is the next one. I'm sorry, potential impact on groundwater. Concerns, it's always a concern as to whether there's adequate capacity for domestic water and or wastewater generation at the wastewater treatment plant. That was addressed, that concern was addressed to the village's consultant Cedarwood, and they replied by a letter to the board stating that there's adequate capacity with the well improvements that were done in the last few years. And within the wastewater treatment plant, again, the Pauling Joint Sewer Commission commented that there is capacity. So moving to impact on plants and animals, as many of you all know, the bog turtle occurrences are a reality here in the village of Pauling. There's also the potential for Indiana bat. The bog turtle guidance from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which the Department of Environmental Conservation from the state also abides by, considers conservation zones, and there are, I think Conservation Zone 1 is the wetland itself where the bog turtle lives. 2 is within a certain distance of that, and 3 is within a farther distance from that. This site is within Zone 3. It's completely developed as it is. There are not any wetlands on site, so it's determined that there would be no significant adverse impact on bog turtles. As far as Indiana bat, I don't believe there are any trees being cleared from the site. If there are, then the condition applied would be that the tree clearing would be restricted to the months that the bats are in hibernation, which is generally October 31 to March 31 of each year. Going forward, potential impact on transportation. No one's denying that there's a change in the traffic. However, the increase in trips is considered not significant from a seeker standpoint. A significant increase in trips is 100 trips during the AM peak period or 100 trips during the PM peak period. As to concerns about site distance and elevation changes and whether there should be a stop sign or there should be a one-way street mandated, that is a village board concern. That's not that is not a problem that the project can solve. So from a transportation standpoint, it's not considered a significant adverse impact. We'll talk about parking on that as well. Recognizing that the applicant is seeking a parking variance where 23 parking spaces are required and they're providing 19. As the applicant noted, the Institute of Traffic Engineers does many studies of many different types of land uses, one of which is a low-rise apartment building. They do studies across the country, and those studies are used to understand what the adequate parking supply and demand, what the adequate supply should be to meet the parking demand. And in this case, the parking demand is anticipated to be 1.27 spaces per dwelling unit. And the 85th percentile, which is the most conservative approach based on the ITE standard, says that's 19 spaces. And they are proposing 19 spaces. So again, it's not a significant adverse impact. The data that we would use to determine what should be the appropriate parking supply would be the ITE. That's the industry standard, and they are hitting that. Going to potential impact on consistency with community plans. The applicant is seeking several variances as noted, 4 of which are in relationship to the urban regulations. Urban regulations ask for a building that essentially takes up the entire frontage of East Main Street, presenting basically a street wall across the entire frontage. It asks for that frontage to be right at the building line. And the applicant, in response to many of the concerns brought up by the planning board, chose to push the building back away from the property line. We are suggesting, based on the conversations that have been had here, that this is actually more in keeping and more consistent with the architectural character of the neighborhood and the park-like atmosphere of the Baptist church and the residential homes, so that there's green space and lawn surrounding the building. It's more centrally located versus being up at the street line like a village, kind of small village center. So as far as impact on consistency with community plans, for those reasons, we don't find it to be significant adverse impact. And again, these are our conclusions. They're draft, for your choice. You make your own decisions. These are the rationales that we came up with.
And as are supported by the conversations that the planning board has been having since this application was first submitted, and the comments of the planning board and recommended modifications to the project, and based on feedback from experts on these environmental issues, including Cedarwood and the Institute of Traffic Engineers. And so with all of that in consideration, the planning board has this document before them to vote on if you'd like to adopt it this evening.
Do you have any comments before we make a motion?
I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I appreciate everybody coming out in support of your community. I remember when I first settled to Pauling back in the 70s, I went to every ZBA meeting, regardless of where the applicant was proposing to do whatever they wanted to do, because I felt we should all stick together within the village. I guess Butch Anderson saw my enthusiasm and he appointed me to the ZBA, and I've been really heavily involved with the village ever since. Initially, if you go back to the minutes, I was opposed to this project for the same reasons you are. Then I realized that I wasn't even listening to my own advice. When people would come up to me and ask me about things that are going on in the village. How can you allow this? How can you allow that? Why are there speeding on East Main Street? How do you allow them parking there? I said, well, you know, some of these issues have to be brought up to the village board, the village trustees. Speeding, stop signs, things of that nature. Parking on Spring Street if we think it's congested. And then I realized I wasn't following my own advice. It's allowed in the zone. I would have to tell them, you're asking me why this particular project is being entertained? Quite simply because it's allowed in the zone. This particular project falls in the B1 zone. Let me read exactly what's allowed in the B1 zone. And the applicant has got a right to use his property the way he sees fit and what's allowed in the zone. Alternative care facility, bed and breakfast, car wash, schools, motor vehicle service station, a hospital, child care facility, hotel, motel, or inn, public utility, medical or dental clinic, restaurant, bar, nightclub, outdoor cafe with table service, funeral parlor, laboratory, laundries and cleaning facilities, indoor recreation, a theater, retail goods and sales, personal service stores, banks, offices for business and professional, commercial parking lots, museum uses. These are all permitted in the B1 zone. How can we tell the applicant you cannot use your particular lot for what's allowed? If, and we talk, the comprehensive plan came up a couple of times. If, when they drafted the comprehensive plan, I would have hoped they would have had the foresight to say, you know what? Maybe we should change this B1 zone into another zone to stay within the comprehensive plan, but they didn't. So, when instances like this that are so
Contentious.
I'm sorry?
Contentious?
Contentious, thank you, Karen. Contentious. Things like this should be headed off prior to even the applicant coming, the residents coming here. You know, this is a B1 zone that's right on the corner of my property. Perhaps you guys should consider some sort of a change. But until that happens, it's a B1 zone, and the applicant has got a right to come before us with an application. So is there a vote? Was there a motion for a vote?
No, thanks, Lou.
Sorry.
Just as to the environmental assessment form part 3, and after which we can review the negative declaration. If there are no other comments from the board.
Just to follow up on Lou's comments on the B1 zone, you're not wrong. It is true. And we are a bit beholden to the zones as they are and the comprehensive plan. This is not the only, this is personal opinion. There's challenges with some of the zoning in this town. This is not the only lot that seems to be inappropriately zoned, but it is what it is, and you're not wrong.
It's not really inappropriately zoned. It's what a person chooses to put on there.
Yeah.
My property's B1 zone. I don't feel I want to sell my property and put up a 3-story, 15-apartment building. I could put 3 on my property.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't change the B1 zone, because I don't want mine.
Yeah. All right, Kel, we'll
The public hearing
talk to
will
you
be
after.
continued.
Yeah. We're going to continue the
There
public
will be
hearing at the
another
next meeting.
opportunity.
Any other comments?
I would add, especially what Lou said, right? The property owner has a right to develop any of those things on that property. This particularly ugly version, I don't know that anybody would develop, but it could just as easily have been retail. It could have been anything else that would have driven more traffic, possibly been less sightly. I think the applicant here has been very reasonable in terms of trying to work with us and sort of feather that edge of business to residential along East Main. So on one hand, the house that's there is definitely a very pretty one. On the other hand, this is, I think, a it's sort of a best case for this property if we're going to do any development on it at all.
So this is not an approval of the project, just
Right.
so everyone knows. We're not going to discuss this evening an actual approval of the project. We're just looking at the environmental impacts.
Right.
So you still have the EAF Part 3 before you.
So
Oh, can I get a motion to adopt Part 3?
I move we adopt the FIF Part 3.
Second.
For 48 East Main.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? No.
Okay, so the final document is a draft negative declaration, which is a finding really that kind of includes and culminates the environmental review and includes the findings of both the Part 2 and the Part 3 EAF. Karen really has described all of these areas pretty effectively, I think. I don't know if there's anything else to add, Karen?
I would only add that, that the project currently meets the state standards for stormwater discharges during construction and drainage and erosion and sediment control, but that as we move further into the site plan approval process, we'll continue to consider the concerns that were brought up tonight, make sure that we're addressing them appropriately.
Thank you.
So the only other points, I don't want to make you read this whole resolution, and so I'll try to kind of summarize a couple points. As Karen said, there will have to be a pollution discharge elimination system general permit for stormwater discharge. You spoke about the ripping, and that there will be 18 months of construction, but that certain dust erosion, erosion and sediment control measures and a stormwater pollution prevention plan will be implemented. There were certain recommendations that noise could be limited by preventing the ripping during evenings and weekend periods. That could be a condition.
Mornings.
Well, also evenings and weekends.
Yeah, we can talk about it as we move.
As a
I just wanted to
condition
get
of
mornings
approval.
in there in addition.
Right, and mornings. And that the Institute of Transportation Engineering trip generation estimates an increase in 26 trips per weekday from this increase from 5 dwelling units to 15, which is 10 additional dwelling units, which is below this, the threshold recommendation for further analysis under SECRA. You discussed the potentially threatened and endangered species on the property. We think that there will be no significant adverse impact on wetland hydrology, water quality, habitat, continuity, vegetation, flora, fauna. This is not in a critical environmental area. We recognize that there will be 5 variances that have been applied for before the Zoning Board of Appeals. As far as the community character, the Planning Board has acknowledged that the subject lot is irregular in shape, which makes strict adherence to the urban regulations more challenging. We've also had comment and discussion amongst the Planning Board of the character of the nearby Baptist Church and development along East Main Street, and that potentially this development could be in keeping more in line with kind of a park-like character rather than becoming fully business B1, kind of as someone mentioned, the transition zone between the business and the residential, which is, potentially challenging to reach kind of that transition area, the threshold. And maybe that the aesthetics and structure are compatible and consistent with other structures in the neighborhood in terms of the design and architectural aesthetics.
Can I ask? Comment on that point 5 of the on page 4 of the application?
Yes.
Secret negative deck.
The action will not result in the impairment of the character or quality of important historical.
Can we strike the second sentence?
That will be up to the board. There should be a roll call vote on that.
Can you read that?
The second sentence is, additionally, the proposed design of the structure is consistent and compatible with surrounding neighborhood character, design, and architectural aesthetics.
I think it's gonna blend, personally, I think it's gonna blend in with the Pauling Commons, so I don't think it's that, I vote that we don't strike that.
I make a motion that we strike the second sentence of point 5.
Can I get a second?
Okay?
Yeah, no, appreciate it.
Okay, so that sentence will remain. That's at the bottom of page 4. All right. The action will not result in a major change in the use of or type of energy. The action is not a hazard to human health. The action will not cause a substantial change in the use or intensity of use of land, including agricultural, open space, or recreational resource, or in its capacity to support existing uses. The rest of these points are ones that are addressed in the full EAF Part 3. And ultimately, the conclusion of this document is based on all of these findings. There will be no significant adverse impact on the environment from this project, and that therefore you can vote to the Village of Pauling Planning Board to adopt this negative declaration, which is ultimately a finding that if there is no positive declaration, no environmental impact statement must be prepared. Any other comments or questions from the board members?
No.
I think you're prepared to vote.
I make a motion that we adopt the neg deck.
Can I get a second?
Second, sorry.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstain?
3 yeses, 1 abstain. This passes. Is adopted.
Do you want to clarify as the chair what the next process is so that everybody understands what we just voted on?
As far as, which part? It's going to the zoning board next. So we had to make a decision tonight as far as seeker, based on all the evidence that, we've been given as far as the environmental impacts of this project. From here, it goes to the zoning board. The zoning board could not make a decision until we made a decision about the environmental impacts for this project,
Which we just did.
which we just did. So now it's in the zoning board's hands to sort out the variances that are needed for this project.
Well, and this puts them in a position to make these decisions.
Yes.
Right.
So- Right.
And the public hearing will remain open into June, so further comments can be received from the public at the June meeting, and then depending on if we have findings from the ZBA, the planning board may be in a position to consider adopting, or approving rather, this project.
I love it on the street. I love the bottom diagram, Kurt, just saying.
You want that?
Top plan. It's Dwayne's vision. It's all I can.
Down here.
Sorry. Just stirred up.
Any other comments on this application this evening? I think we've done as much as we can.
Yeah. No additional comments? Like I said, public hearing's open next meeting. If anyone would like to attend and has any comments, please feel free. Do we have any other business, Amanda?
No, but I just wanted to let everybody know that you can also write a letter,
Oh.
bring it in to me, or you can email too if you prefer things in writing as well. That'll be part of the minutes.
Right, the public hearing is, public comment is also open to written comment mailed to the village or dropped off to
And I have
Amanda.
no other business.
All right.
We could bring Rob back now, I think. if he's-
Mark.
Mark, yeah.
sorry.
Oh, Mark.
Oh, yeah, Mark closing the meeting.
Thank you very much.
All right, good night.
Thank you.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay. Adjourn. Favor? Aye. All in favor? Aye.